Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Durant, president of Lion's Eye Wealth. Lion's Eye Wealth is a boutique wealth management firm. So, in lay terms, I'm a financial advisor. I build custom portfolios for clients track to their goals. So, today in this episode of the Creating Real Wealth podcast and video, we have a really exciting topic and a favorite person of mine on to talk about abundance. And so, if you listen to the intro of Creating Real Wealth podcast, I say that I talk about also the holistic side of creating wealth and bringing abundance. And this is an area where I'll say, even myself, I've had some struggles in which Jenny's helped me and has kind of been a lifelong thing. And I think most of us have a tendency to, at one point in our life, deal with feelings of lack or not feeling worthy of abundance. And that gets in our way sometimes from locked in childhood patterns. So today I have Jenny Adams with me. She is a great holistic practitioner. She does body work. She does energy work. She does breath work. She's worked with me and it's just been great in working with her. And so I asked her if she would come on and talk a little bit about an abundance mindset and, the places where we fall down in doubting ourselves or having disbelief that we can attract money towards us. So with that, I'd love for Jenny, if you could just introduce yourself and talk a bit about the way in which you work with people.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. So abundance is something I talk to pretty much every single one of my clients about at some point, because being truly abundant is about living a life of joy and peace and purpose. So what I do is I run the company called The Spirit Root. And what we do is we bring spiritual sort of soulful dimensions and tools down into real reality, into our human lives so that we can create those things. I help people kind of work on their inner landscape, I would say, to clean out old traumas, to maybe get really clear on what makes them happy so they don't end up chasing that carrot of someone else's dream for the rest of their life. So they can actually be fulfilled and nourished with what they choose to put their energy into while in this body. Because as we all know, it's very short when we get to the end. So we want to make sure that we're really living consciously instead of on autopilot. And so I help people get really clear on what happens when you click out of autopilot, which most of us are on since we're little kids, and transition through that fear moment of actually having free choice of what I want to create here and really work towards building that dream life that people really crave, which is, intimacy and relationships and sometimes travel and fresh new experiences. And really, more importantly, the center of that is having an inner connection with themselves, which gives them a connection to a greater, whatever you want to call it, oneness, God, goddess, source, universal light. So that's what I like to do with my time.
Yeah. And you're very, very good at it. Jenny is exceptional, and that's why she's on today. So I just wonder, you get a chance to see both, people doing really well in terms of an abundance mindset and acting on that sort of without any doubt that it's coming to them. And then the other flip side is people that are really struggling and feeling that they're not worthy, that they can't bring things to them, and then everything in between. So I was wondering what you see with that, in obviously maintaining confidentiality, no naming name, but in your practice, just what you see and how you help people that have maybe issues around abundance.
Yeah. So I see both sides of the spectrum often. I work with people that are really just struggling with even having any self-loyalty to themselves at all, which is a form of abundance, all the way to people that are, CEOs of corporations that have everything and yet are still feeling empty. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic on how we define abundance, first of all. And I think, you and I have chatted about this a lot, that it's really more of an inner experience of wealth. And that kind of oozes out of us into financial wealth or relationships or something else out there in the outer world. But I think the pattern that I see the most is people that, if I could put some psychological labeling to it, people that have emotional neglect as children. And that can mean that your parents, didn't change your diaper when you were crying for 30 seconds. It doesn't mean your parents were neglectful. It just means that you felt neglected. So, trauma is the base of all non-abundance. And what we know about trauma is it's not what happened to you, it's how you interpreted what happened to you. And that's some of Gabor Mate's really beautiful work that he's worked on for years. So how do we process what happened to us, and what does that look like when we become adults and really try to be in the abundant world? So trauma is a big one, emotional neglect as a child. It ends up being this, what I call the open drain syndrome, where people have all this beautiful abundance around them that they can't hold on to it. It just goes down the drain. And so that happens with people that are starting out and just learning self-loyalty, and people that are very successful. So how do we plug the drain, right? Well, that's a lot of inner work. That's a lot of knowing that you deserve it, being able to really receive from your body and not just your mind. So many people want something from their mind, and then they get it and it's not enough for some reason. So that not enoughness thing is actually an inner draining of self. So we work with people a lot to really understand what traumas they have held in their body, because the body does keep the score. And really, how do we want to move that out into more awareness, consciousness, and authentic ownership of self? And then when you have abundance, you can actually enjoy it and settle into that beautiful, Mai Tai on the beach without wondering where your next $100 is coming from, or if you have to keep your corporation running on that beach. Your mind's not present. So is that really abundant? I don't think so. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And, you'd mentioned to me that, some people that you work with at the top, CEOs and whatnot. And of course, I've read these stories that they have so much and they're yet hollow inside or not satisfied. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes you work with them and, even through body work where the tears are coming out. And, it's interesting to think about how that happens, because many people would just assume that those people are automatically happy with because they have so much. And I think it's what you brought up too about abundance is that, yes, there's financial abundance, but there are all different kinds of, abundance that you can feel with love and relationships, with things that you do, things that enrich you, and that at a soul level, abundance and really wealth is an inside job, even though many of us look at it in terms of dollars and assets. And certainly in my world, that's what I do with building portfolios and investments, is I'm tracking people to their goals. And hopefully when they reach those goals, they are feeling fulfilled and happy, although I'm pretty sure that that's not always the case. You also mentioned this thing that people, are chasing money, and then once they obtain it, all of a sudden they're locking on in like a really fearful way, that they're fearful of what they're going to lose. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. Because that happens. I think that actually happens to all of us. Even if you're not conscious of it, thoughts aren't conscious. They're just in the subconscious, just poking up here in real time. And we get a choice to see if we want to actually take it on and put it in our pocket and hold on to it, or just be like, next, and decide on what we want to think. And I think in that sense, fear is a tool more than anything to really train your mind to really build that muscle of conscious mindfulness. Because if we start to have a relationship with fear, and I say tango with fear, don't fear fear, then we can really, that's the start to really ownership of your freedom in many ways. And I love what you said about, people want financial freedom because of the safety that it might bring, or perhaps the freedom it might bring to do whatever they want to do on the earth. Yeah. But if you don't know what you want to do here, then you're not free and you're not safe. You're just on a treadmill of someone else's dream. So getting to those points in financial abundance and also internal abundance if those can mirror each other, then that's really, you're on track with what your soul really wants to do here. And you're able to express your true genius that you came here to do, which brings you joy. So there's more abundance. So fear is a tool. It's not a negative, bad word. I mean, as kids, we're programmed in our body, and as adults, fear is that survival instinct that often gets turned on just because we have those stressful thoughts that run around our head. I call them ants, automatic negative thoughts, that aren't conscious, that pop up, and we decide if we're going to believe them or not. That's the problem. We decide we're going to believe them, even if it's a passive choice, we're going to do it. So we have to get really conscious on what's happening, become the observer, and take stock of what's going on inside us. And then we need to start choosing consciously what we want to have here. And that's where the work is, really. That's the main work of being in this body, is choosing your thoughts so that you can magnetize things to you that you want. So fear is a great tool, but if you don't want to do the work, then fear will be, sorry about my language, but you'll be fear's bitch if you're not on track.
Absolutely.
So we always say in workshops, make your mind your bitch so that you don't fall, victim to your own mind, because it will happen if you're not making it not happen. That's how our society is set up, fear-based society. So that's how it is.
Right. So on that note, I think right now, at least in my experience in being out in wealth management and doing calls and meeting with people, one thing that I don't think is being reported in the media much, but it's just been an observation and being out there as much as I have to. Really, over the last month and a half, I've noticed kind of a shift where people are frozen. They are afraid to make a decision. Their portfolio could be 20% down. I might feel that I need to move them out of a stock position that's been down 25%, but it's a fear of, no, I don't want any change. No, I don't want to touch my portfolio. If I'm giving a second opinion on a portfolio and I look at it and it's been seriously down, I've been kind of questioning how people can hang on to that portfolio, even when, let's say, I think that'd be one thing if that was a long-term buy and hold and that was the person's perspective. But if it's not, whatever it is might not be best positioned for the next 3 years. It's instances like that where, I'm just wondering, why are people frozen? So, right now, I think Andrew Beer, who I interviewed from DBI, that has a strategy called DBMF Managed Futures, he was talking about regime change and that we are undergoing this. I think it's multifaceted, not just with regard to the market and the economy, but some fundamental things have been shifting under our feet. And what I'm curious about is why now? It seems like we've come out of COVID, that we should be doing better. So I guess, what are you seeing in your practice? And are you seeing kind of this theme of frozen in place or confusion going on now that doesn't seem to be talked about much?
Well, that's a huge topic, and I'll try to get some thoughts about that. I mean, human beings and civilization are always changing, and that comes with government change. And depending on what country you live in, I've lived in several countries, that the mindset of the collective tends to dictate the mindset of how your finances are choosing. I guess I could say it like that, because people are so in the hive mind often about, what's going on in politics equals what's going on in society, which means, again, activating that fear or not. So when someone, and maybe a new regime says, be scared, and everyone says, okay, we'll do that, then that just filters down into, abundance factors, instead of people holding on and saying, what do I really feel about this? It's coming from the inner intuition of, do I need to be scared right now? Or is this just a collective hive mind fear that's being programmed into my system, my matrix, in order to serve somebody else? And that's really a personal experience. And I think we all felt that with COVID, as far as medical freedoms go. Do I want to be terrified, or do I want to sit with that for a moment and just feel what's right for me? Is that expansive or contractive to make certain choices about my health? And I think that that's the same with finances, because it's still an abundance arena. How do I really want to behave right now from my intuition, from my deep body, embodied self? Is it time to be scared? Is it time to hold? Or is it time to maybe get adventurous and creative with how I want to live in the future? So that's I think what I could say about it, considering, there's a lot of ways we could go with, that kind of question.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes. I know we've talked about freedom quite a bit, and interestingly, I had a interesting conversation with my son about freedom, and I was very happy to hear that he's been raising questions in school about, like, if you're going to ask for freedom in one area, let's say with regard to your body and health, you would think that there should be consistently freedom on the other side. And it's interesting, the point that, like, even, I don't know, maybe because he's my son, but he's going into school and asking these questions, and bringing some awareness, because there seems to be some conflicting decision making going on about, especially with regard to health freedoms, but other freedoms. I'm just wondering too, if it's something that's becoming a bit entrenched in people, like inflation is becoming somewhat entrenched in our economy. If this fear thinking, since COVID, even though we're coming out of it and all of that, is now entrenched and is now perhaps a pattern that needs to be broken. But that is, to your point, the programming. Some would say that is very intentional, what's going on, but to be aware enough to ask the questions, if you're okay, or as my son would say, if you're down with the program or not. And if you want the freedom to do the things that I think a lot of people want to do in their life. I also wonder about, that when you're doing your work with clients, you have an office that you do. Well, actually, I think 2 offices that you do that, and you do retreats. So I was wondering if you could talk a bit about, if people want to work with you, what that would look like, how they could contact you, and the kind of work that you offer.
Yeah, thank you. And can I just say one last thing about what we were just talking about? And I think it comes down to trust and truth. I think all of us have to decide what's truthful for us, and really know that that might not be true for everybody else. And that's true in every single abundant place we look. There's different diets for different people. There's different exercise for different people. There's different, ways to invest your energy, money, time, that doesn't have to be collectively blanketed over by everyone else's opinions, because I think that's a huge thing to know. We have to trust ourselves. But thank you. Yeah. Okay. So what can you do to work with me? I have 2 companies. One is called the Spirit Root, which is more of a coaching company that we do lots of dynamic breath work, trauma release breath work, really do the human side of things, as far as getting nutrition correct for you, and just what's going on in your human self, as far as, safety, emotional stuff, relationships, self-esteem, confidence, those kinds of things that kind of fine tune your frequency so that you can start voting into this field that we live in, for what you want, not for what you don't want. And then the other company is called the 5 Pillars, and that's more of an education online system, which works with really working with all the energy stuff that I've ever worked with, which includes trauma work, shamanism, all kinds of meditation, hypnosis, goes into a little bit more of that more quantum energetics, or maybe some people might call it woo-woo stuff, that gets you into really in alignment with yourself through a system that works with Greek mythology and a whole bunch of different tools, really, to just get you aligned with your own self, loyalty, and love, so that you can live a life of purpose and abundance. So they can reach me through either one of those avenues. Yeah. And we do retreats. So we're looking at doing a dynamic breathwork retreat in, when is that? April, in Costa Rica, and then possibly kind of a really more I don't know. It's in my head. We're going to maybe do a retreat about just training your mind through breath, dynamic breath, breath holding, apnea, hypoxia training, and also just circular, more holotropic breath stuff, maybe down in Croatia in the fall. Because I love free diving, and anything I can do to get in the water, I will. So
Yes, absolutely. We talk
yeah,
back and forth a lot about getting to the water, getting to warmer weather, sitting here in Colorado where it's cold, and hopefully there'll be snow on the way so we can get some more skiing in up in the
yeah.
mountains.
Frozen
Uh,
water, still water, at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that maybe we've left out about abundance and wealth building in closing that you'd like to tell everybody?
I mean, I don't think abundance happens in a vacuum. I think it happens while we're in community and meeting new people and, just feeling out that arena. I think a lot of people think they have to protect their abundance and isolate it instead of share it. And I think sharing it is kind of like what turns on the faucet for more to come. So, it's I think it's called the law of charity when it comes to universal laws. And it's just, you give your time, you give your energy to something that is 100% selfless, and you get more flow.
Mhm.
So that's always a nice way to also lift some of that fear and really just, chill out. We're only here for a short time. We might as well, swallow all the crap we don't need and digest it so we can really live abundantly and have fun. It's about fun. It's really
It
about
def-
having fun here. Everyone's so serious.
it definitely is. And, I just had some experiences over the last week where, I thought that I was talking to people mostly about finance, but then it led other directions for, things where I could be involved in the community and giving back, which is really, I did a talk for Giving Tuesday that people really loved for something like 33 nonprofits. And a lot came out of that. And then other meetings last week. And I just thought that it's really important with abundance and just thinking about what's our path in life. And the best path in life is to always be open to what can come to us, even if it wasn't exactly on our radar as a goal. Sometimes things just drop in our laps, as a couple things did for me last week that I wasn't necessarily planning on, but came. And then I realized, oh, this is part of my bigger life picture of like, yes, I have my work life, which is in finance. I also do a lot of writing, but then giving back in community and the things I can do that way is also really important. And it's neat when that happens. So I think it's important to always have an open mind too about, when you're out meeting with people and talking of what can be together. I liked what you said about abundance. It's not just a solo job. I don't think it's so much about how we connect together too.
Yeah, it's about creating a new earth. I mean, I don't want to steal Eckhart Tolle's like language, but it is. It's about creating more of a community that is based in something that's not fear.
Absolutely.
So we can do that. We can completely do that one person at a time. So, yeah.
Definitely. Well, with that, thank you so much, Jenny, for coming on today. And I encourage all of you, if you're interested, to get in touch with Jenny, see how you can work with her. She's just been great. And she works with a lot of people in business and all different professions, and even a lot of women, but men as well. So if you have time, love for you to get in touch with Jenny. And thank you so much for tuning in today to the Creating Real Love podcast and video. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks, Lisa. Bye.